Hello, welcome. This is an introductory lesson on setting up your planetary lines. I have a daily price chart up for the March 2004 E-mini contract as an example. And a great way to start out here is to put your mouse on any particular top or bottom and determine what the aspects that were occurring on that day that trigger the reversal. So we could take this bottom, for example, and click on it on the 23rd of September 2003, and we had these heliocentric aspects on that particular day. You could also analyze things on a heliocentric perspective. These are the aspects that were occurring. We could click on the bar on this bottom here, and here's some more aspects. We had a Mercury trine Uranus aspect. And basically what we'd be doing then is putting our planetary lines on based on these aspects. So if Mercury was trine Uranus, we would go to planetary lines and put in Mercury Uranus at 120 for the setting, the universal clock degree setting. Here's the top here. We had a Sun semi-square Pluto aspect on the 26th of January 2004. We had Jupiter crossing the 24 line, Sun quincunx Saturn the following day on the 27th. Here's a bottom on the 29th of January. Mercury crossing the 24, Mercury trine Jupiter, 120 degrees, Venus opposed Jupiter, 180 degrees. These are the geocentric aspects. Heliocentrically, we had Mercury sesqui-square Saturn, 135 degrees, and Venus crossing the 24. So let's go back to the geo aspects on this particular day, and let's put in some planetary lines now. Now I could put the Mercury lines based on the 24 setting, but if you think about it, 120 is a multiple of 24, so that would cover that. That would cover that setting in line. So let's just put in the Mercury trine Jupiter lines at the 120 setting to see if that could have been the low that triggered the reversal. It could have been the Mercury trine Jupiter aspect or the Venus opposed Jupiter aspect. We had a cluster on this day. We had all of these things occurring. So this often triggers reversals when you have two or more aspects occurring. But what we're looking for here is the correct price level for confirmation. So we're not just looking at the day of reversal, we're confirming that with prices being at the correct planetary level based on the aspect. So this is a way of measuring when price and time are equal. So we're going to put in the settings for Mercury and Jupiter here at 120, and then also Venus, Jupiter at 180, and see which one triggered the reversal if that was the case. So let's color the bars here. Let's click on aspects and double click on angle between planets, and this will color the bar for the aspect that occurred. We then click on planets and we're going to edit and uncheck Mars and check on Jupiter, and I've changed the thickness of the bar. You can create it any way you want. And for angle, we're going to type in 120. If we wanted multiples of aspects, we would double click on the N. For multiples, it would turn into Y. That would give us multiples of 120, or 120 plus 120, which is 240, or the trine once again, plus 120 is 360, or the conjunction. So if we clicked on multiples for the 120 degree aspect, we would get the conjunction and trine. But we're just looking at the trine right now, and we're just coloring the bar to identify the aspect. So we had Mercury trine Jupiter 120 degrees on the 29th of January 2004. So the next step is to go to planetary lines. You would double click on Mercury, double click on Jupiter. You would edit the lines. You can set your defaults to anything you want if you put in a particular universal clock division, and then click on save as default. I use the 15 setting because it covers basically the whole spectrum of aspects except for the quintile and biquintile aspects. Those are the 72 and 144 degree aspects. But in any case, we'd be editing the setting based on the aspect or universal clock division. We would be typing in 120. We're using a factor of -1. I'm going to explain again the factors so you get an idea of what that's about. We're using the -1 factor, and this is what it would look like crossing for the aspect. That was not a precise low based on this factor, based on this aspect. And if I expand the chart again, you'll notice that the lines here are 120 points apart for the trine of 120. And we're in a solid uptrend. But basically with the factors, a factor 0 could be, as an example, 1 degree equaling 1 point. If we're using a factor of -1, that would be dividing by 10. -2 would be dividing by 10 again. If we're using a factor of +1 or 1, that would be multiplying by 10, and +2 or 2 would be multiplying by 10 again. And if a stock or commodity is trading, or like in this case, a stock index trading over 100 or 1,000, the programmer ought to automatically make a factor adjustment, because in this case we have a market trading over 1,000, so 1 degree equaling 1 point wouldn't make much sense. But based on this factor, the lines are 120 points apart. And that was not at the precise level based on this aspect and this factor. But what if we change the factor? If you want to edit your indicator, planetary line, you just click on the indicator and then change the factor to -2. Now this is going to put the lines 12 points apart instead of 120. And what we have here is a precise low based on the Mercury-Jupiter trine at the correct precise price level. So we had an aspect at the correct, forming a low at the correct price level on this particular day. And since we're in an uptrend, here's the low at 1120.75. Since we're in an uptrend, that would be a pullback and a buying opportunity. Now, let me explain and show you how it would look with the Venus-Jupiter opposition. Now I'm going to right-click on the indicator for Mercury and click on Do Not Show. And since we have Jupiter already up here, you can basically edit the setting for Jupiter. So if there was a Venus-Jupiter opposition 120, you just type in 180 and change it. And I want to show you that based on the Venus-Jupiter opposition, it was not a correct precise low. The Jupiter line at the 180 setting was down here at about 1114.75. The low was 1120.75. However, at the 120 setting, it's precise. It's right on the money. And there's the Mercury-Jupiter crossing. And you notice once the low was made that the market came back down, made a slightly higher low right at the Mercury line. That turned into support. And then the next bar was right at the Mercury line again. And then the high on the 11th of February was once again at the Mercury line. And this happens often. If you get a reversal based on a planetary aspect or harmonic, price is going to vibrate based on that to a certain level, the next level in an uptrend, and the top is going to be coming up to one of the planetary lines based on that aspect. Or if there's a downtrend, the low is going to, a bottom is going to be coming in based on that vibration of that aspect, so to say. And in this case, price came up roughly 3 Mercury lines, roughly 36 points, and that Mercury line was resistance, planetary resistance, on the 11th of February. We have not gone any higher since that date. So this was a good buying opportunity on the 29th, confirmed with a correct, precise low based on the Mercury-Jupiter trine. And then you'd also be looking for to take profits at these lines, the next Mercury-Jupiter lines, and watching and monitoring price here. So we had a high there. That could be one profit point right here. And then once again at the next Mercury line, since we blow through this Mercury 360 line, which is the thicker line. When you see a thicker line, by the way, that is the 360 line, the actual longitude of the planet converted into price, plus multiples of 36 or 360 depending on the factor. So this is a quick example of how you would set these, how you set the lines up based on the aspects. And once again, a great way to practice. I'm going to remove the lines. A great way to practice here is to simply double click on any top or bottom and use historical data to practice and go back and put in your settings. So if there's a bottom here on the 23rd of October, you could put the Mercury-Uranus trine in there 120 degrees. And sometimes you might have to go a day before or 1 or 2 days before the aspect to determine what it was. And you might have to look at things heliocentrically. It makes no difference if you analyze things either way. And that will give you a good method for practice and getting skilled at doing this. Here's another one on the 30th of September. And once again, this is what it looked like on this particular day based on the Mercury-Jupiter trine. Hello and welcome to the second lesson on setting up your planetary lines. I have as our chart example the same price chart for the March E-mini with the Mercury-Jupiter planetary lines on and the correct low we identified on the 29th of January based on the Mercury trine Jupiter aspect. What I thought we could do now is let's analyze this low heliocentrically instead of geocentrically and see what we come up with, and let me take you through the process of analysis whether or not we can determine if this was a correct helio aspect that brought this low and reversal back up. So let's just get rid of our lines on the chart and start from scratch. Let's click on the bar though that we're analyzing. Left click on the bar and click on helio, and you'll see two aspects on this particular day. You'll see Mercury sesqui-square Saturn 135 degrees and Venus crossing the 24 line of the universal clock heliocentrically. So let's take a look at the Mercury sesqui-square Saturn aspect and the planetary lines. And by the way, when I see a 135 degree aspect, what I have found, this is just a little bit of a tip here, what I found is I like to use the 45 setting for the planetary lines when there's a 135 degree aspect, because 135 is a multiple of 45 and it's an 8th harmonic aspect, or the circle of 360 divided by 8 is 45, and 135 degrees is a multiple of 45. I use 45 because 45 goes evenly into 360. 135 does not. I also like to use the 30 setting for the 150 degree quincunx aspect because 30 goes evenly into 360 and 150 does not. So these are two exceptions when you're putting in your planetary lines and the settings, and tips that I recommend. So what we're going to do now is put in the Mercury-Saturn lines at 45. That's step one. So let's minimize the aspect research box. Let's go to planetary lines. But now before we go there, let's edit the angle between planets. So we're identifying the bar as the Mercury, Helio-Mercury sesqui-square Saturn aspect. So we're going to go to planets and change it to Saturn, Mercury, Saturn. Double click on G, turns into H for Helio. We type in 135 for the sesqui-square aspect. So now we got the Mercury sesqui-square Saturn aspect as well on the low on the 29th of January 2004. Now we go to planetary lines and we add Mercury and we add Saturn. we edit the lines to Helio 45, and we go to Saturn. I'm using a factor -1 right now. Helio, universal clock division is the for the aspect. We're using 45 for the 135 degree aspect, and we're using a factor -1. Now where the lines cross is when the aspect is occurring on the 29th. You'll see the lines crossing here. So we did not have a correct low. Now these lines at this factor are 45 points apart. So if we change the factor, again, it's sliding the decimal point over 1 or dividing by 10. If we change it to factor -2, that means the lines are going to be 4.5 points apart, not 45. And it looks a little busy on a daily chart. If you're using a faster time frame, like a 60-minute chart, or 30-minute, 15-minute, 5-minute, it's not going to look as busy. But we're going through this process, and as you see here, it was not as precise of a low as we had for the Mercury trine Jupiter aspect. The low was 11:20.75, and the crossing is roughly about 11:21.75. It's about a point off. And you may be asking, how many ticks do you give it? How wide of an orb? Personally, it depends on the time frame you're looking at. But for the S&P, I prefer it to be very precise, within a couple ticks, within 1 or 2 ticks. I prefer. 1 point here is getting a little bit on the wide side, so it's not as precise, and so I don't like this as strongly as the Mercury trine Jupiter precise low, which was pretty much to the tick, if you noticed, on that particular day. So this is one of the steps we would go through when we're analyzing things, either geocentrically or heliocentrically. And we've put in the Mercury-Saturn lines for the Mercury-Saturn aspect. We've adjusted the factor. We don't have a precise low here. So if you're analyzing things this way, at this point, you can just simply delete it and move on to another aspect. And if you're trading the daily time frame, or I'll leave the aspect on there, or if you're trading end-of-day data, you got plenty of time to figure all this stuff out. You're not making your mind up till the next day, or when the price breaks through one of your technical indicators and gives you a buy signal. So you got time to work this out and figure these things out if you're position trading or trading longer-term swings on the daily time frame. And this is the process you would go through. Now, the other aspect on this day was heliocentric Venus crossing the 24. So what we're going to now do is put the Venus 24 lines on. So let's delete the aspect. Let's go to aspects and add crossing the line to our indicators and change it to Venus. And then we're going to change the G to H for helio. And if you click on style, you can make it as thick as you want for the bar. We click on exit. And now we have also the low on the 29th of January for the bar colored for heliocentric Venus crossing the 24. Now we go to planetary lines, and we're going to double click on Venus, and we're going to change the G to H. We're going to type in 24, and if you didn't change your defaults, the program automatically defaults to heliocentric 24, so you don't have to do anything. Again, once you adjust your universal clock divisions to whatever you want, you can save it as a default. I personally use the 15 as a default. It doesn't matter, but you can change that. That's an option you have. So we're using a factor of -1 like we did originally for in the previous lesson, and we started out with for the Mercury-Saturn lines, and this is what it looks like. At factor -1, the lines are 24 points apart. And we did not have a precise low on the 29th of January. So what if we change the factor? Keep in mind, if we change the factor to -2, the lines are now going to be 2.4 points apart. And it's going to look pretty busy. It's a lot of lines for a daily chart. But if you were looking at a faster time frame, like a 5-minute, 15-minute, 30-minute, 60-minute chart, it would look fine, you know, with prices 2.4 points apart. But in a daily chart, it's going to look busy. But let's go through the process of analysis here and see what it looks like. Okay, so what we've come up with is a precise low for Venus crossing the 24, the Venus 24 line at this factor. And if you notice the line, the thick Venus line, thick green line here going across, that's always the 360 line, the thicker of the lines. You see a thick line here and a thick line above up here at the top, by the way, on the 11th of February. The thicker line is always the 360 line for the planet. It's the longitude of the planet plus a multiple of 360 or 36, depending on the factor, etc. So keep that in mind. And with a low at the Venus 360 line, which is the first harmonic line, the strongest of the lines of all the harmonics, we also had a correct low based on Venus crossing 24 at this setting. So here's additional confirmation. If you're looking for it, we had a Mercury-Jupiter trine geocentrically, correct low, factor -2. And now we have it here at the Venus 24 line, Venus crossing the 24 line at factor -2. But what's so strong about this, it's not just one of these Venus lines. It's the Venus 360 line. And that is the strongest of the lines, and this is a heliocentric first harmonic Venus line. And if you left click on the indicator, you can change the setting from 24 to 360 and you'll actually see it, and all of these other 24 lines are going to disappear. At 360, at this factor, the lines are going to be 36 points apart. So let's do that so you can see it, what it looks like. And there it is. It's a first harmonic Venus line that corresponds to Venus crossing the 24 line heliocentrically of the universal clock. And note the high on the 11th of February, also at the same Venus line. So that's another way of analyzing this and gives you additional confirmation. Another thing worth noticing, I'm sure you already have, is on the 4th and the 5th of February. We tested the Venus line, the ascending Venus line. And that's the speed of Venus heliocentrically, by the way. And that held as support, which shows strength for this harmonic. And it's another way of analyzing this heliocentrically with the Helio-Venus line. You notice these planetary pairs also. Often price repeats itself in the same price range when planets cross the 24 again, or an aspect repeats. And at the times it's not in the same range, it's in a relative range. If it's 24, if the 24 setting, it could be 24 points or a multiple of 2.4 from where it was at the previous time when Venus crossed the 24 line. If I expand the chart, you'll see a lot of the price repetitions that occur. And here you have 4 in a row in the same range. On the 16th of October 2003, 31st, the 14th of November, 28th of November, price was all in the same range. And then as the trend continued back up, we're in a relative range to where it was, and then price repeated again here on the 14th of January, and then once again on the 29th. And then price was in the same range on the 13th of February as it was on the 27th. And this happens often. Not all the time, but often price will be in the same price range when an aspect repeats or the planet crosses the 24 line, and that repeats again. So I wanted to look at this heliocentrically so you could see what it looks like as additional confirmation. And if you want to put both on, we can go back to planetary lines, and let's add Mercury, Jupiter so you can see it once again. Type in 120. We're using a factor of -2 for the Mercury-Jupiter trine from the previous lesson. And there you have it, 29th January. That's a precise flow. The heliocentric 360 line, heliocentric Venus crossing the 24, the Mercury-Jupiter 120 line, Mercury trine Jupiter. Additional confirmation, a great buy signal on a pullback and an uptrend. Hello and welcome again to lesson 3 on setting up your planetary lines. I have on the screen here once again the March 2004 E-mini, except I've taken off the Mercury-Jupiter 120 lines and the heliocentric Venus 360 lines from the previous lesson. So now we're starting from scratch, and what I would like to do is take you through the process once again of setting up your planetary lines and figuring out what the planetary aspect or aspects were at the correct levels that triggered a reversal in the past. And this is the key of getting skilled at doing this, is to take historical data and simply click on any high or low. Click on any high or low and put in your planetary lines based on the aspects. For example, here's Mars opposed Jupiter. Click on this one. And put your planetary lines on for the aspects and figure out what it was that triggered the reversal up or triggered the reversal back down, what the aspects were, what the planetary harmonics were. And the more we do this, the more skilled we're going to get at this, the more confident we're going to get at using this system and these tools, and the more prepared we'll be in the future. So when an aspect occurs in the future, or aspects or clusters in the future are going to happen, we know when to look for a reversal. And not only do we know when to look for it, we know at what price levels to look for it. We're prepared. We have our planetary lines. We have our harmonic charts set up correctly, so we know what to look for, and we're prepared to act on this information. But to get confident at this and to get confident acting on this, we have to get skilled at it. And the only way I can think of, the best way, is to practice. There's no other way. I mean, this is an art. We have to look at these. Look at price charts, look at historical data, and figure out what it was that triggered a reversal. And it will always be an astro aspect or aspects, more than one, and it will always be at a planetary price level or a harmonic or a inner harmonic, a relative harmonic, which I'm not going to get into in this lesson, but it's always going to be based on one of those factors. So let's do another practice lesson here. Let's take any low. If we take this low here, October 24th, first of all, you notice Mercury went into Scorpio. It's a sign change, and oftentimes the market reverses when planets change signs. And let's look a couple days either side of the low in this case and see if there was other aspects that are occurring that could have triggered the reversal. So if there's several that are happening around the same time period, that usually brings a strong reversal. It's called a cluster, and then we're then looking for the correct price level based on one of these aspects. We had Mercury trine Uranus on the 23rd. Sun also enters Scorpio the following day. Venus semisextile Pluto. 22nd, we had Sun trine Uranus. We had Mercury semi-squared Jupiter. Neptune direct, another astro-signature for a reversal. The bottom's on the 24th of October 2003. The 25th, over the weekend, we had Saturn retrograde. And many of you remember what happened when Saturn went retrograde in 2002. That was the bottom of the stock market after that huge decline. And if we go to the 26th, we have Mercury and the Sun both semi-square Pluto, 45 degrees. In the 27th, we have Mercury trine Mars, Mercury crossing the 24 line. So there's a lot of aspects that are happening here that we can put on, where we can put on the planetary lines that could represent what the low was. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes you'll be right on the day, and it'll be obvious. It'll be right in front of you. At other times, you might have to go a couple days ahead or after the aspect to determine what it was that triggered the reversal. And there's going to be some more work involved. So let's go through the process. We have the 24th, and we have Mercury changing signs. Let's look at the 23rd. We have Mercury trine Uranus, 120 degrees. And remember, on the 22nd, we had Sun trine Uranus. So right off the bat, we want to go to planetary lines and add Uranus at the 120 setting. So we're going to change the universal clock division to 120. Let's use a factor of -1, and let's take a look at it. And we're looking at the 24th, this bar. So at this factor, that's not what we're looking for. We need to change it to -2, which will move the lines 12 points apart instead of 120 points apart. So the Uranus line is not hitting the low. It's not precise enough here. So at this point, we're going to just hide it. And by the way, once you add a line, if you don't want to remove it, you want to hide it, you don't want to see it on the chart, you can simply right-click on the indicator and click on with your left mouse key the Show button. Right-click on the right mouse key on the indicator, and then left-click, and you can click on Do Not Show, and it can disappear without having to remove it. We also had Mercury semi-square Jupiter on the 22nd. So let's go back to planetary lines here. Now, if we had Mercury and Jupiter at 45, of course, these lines will come together based on that aspect. If you want to be quick about it, we could just add one of them and see what it looks like. If we add Jupiter at 45, not 345, 45, factor -1. It's pretty close. It's not bad. However, it's not precise enough for what I'm looking for. I like it to be within a couple ticks. And the low was 1015, and Jupiter line's roughly, if you notice, the y equals 1017. It's about a point or a little bit over a point away. So it's not as precise as I would like to see it. But that's not bad. We're getting closer here. But let's go on click on Do Not Show, get rid of that. Let's go back to the 23rd. We had Venus semi-sextile Pluto. So then we'd go to planetary lines. You could click on Venus or Pluto. But if we click on Venus, we would change it to 30. Let's see what it looks like at factor 0. Probably not going to see it. Well, the lines are too vertical. That's how you know your lines are incorrect. So we would then adjust the factor to -1. And no, that's way off. Not even close. So we're not going to look at that. And I would not change the factor at this point for the 30 setting to -2, because then the lines will be 3 points apart, and it's going to look too busy here. So let's hide that. Let's go back to the 24th. Now we're going to look at the weekend, what was going on. Venus opposed the North TN, which is the true node, the true north node. And that's 180 degrees. And we already have Venus on at 30. So if Venus is opposing the north node, let's take a look at 180 now. And let's change the factor. And let's see what we come up with. Okay, there's Venus at 30, minus 1. You can simply left click on the indicator, change the universal clock division to 180 for the Venus opposed the north node, and exit. Left click on again, and now we can change the factor to minus 2. Why? Because the Venus lines are 180 points apart. At factor minus 2, they're going to be 18 points apart, and that's okay now on this daily chart. Now we got something here that's looking better. And if I scroll back with the chart, you can zoom in on it. Take a closer look. It's better, but still not close enough for me. The low is 10.15, the Venus line is 10.12, 10.13 maybe. It's 2 points off. So I don't like it. So we'll right click on the indicator, click on do not show, and it disappears. Going back to aspect research, we're going on the 26th. See, what we're doing here is we're looking at the aspects that occurred over the weekend. So when you get a reversal on a Friday, you have to look at the aspects over the weekend and on the following Monday, because sometimes that can trigger the reversal on the Friday. And what I've done also is looked a couple days ahead in this case, on the 22nd and the 23rd. Now with this Sun-Mercury conjunction semi-squares Pluto on the 26th at 45. So let's simply add the Pluto line at 45 and take a look. Go to planetary lines. Here's Pluto. Actually, I saved it at 90 previously. 45, and let's change the factor back to minus 1. I don't want the lines 4.5 points apart. I want them 45 points apart. Let's take a look. Again, we're looking at the 24th, and nope, that's not it. Ready to give up yet? I hope not. Here's the 27th, and we have Mercury crossing the 24, Mercury trine Mars. So we can set up the Mercury-Mars lines at 120 and take a look at that. We go to planetary lines. Let's add Mars. Edit. Let's go to 120. Use a factor of minus 1. This thick Mars line, by the way, is the Mars 360 line. Anytime you see it, see the line that's thicker, and that held as resistance, by the way, in September and October very well. But let's change the factor here to minus 2. So now the Mars lines are 12 points apart. And once again, it was not close enough. So let's hide that. Let's go back. We also had Mercury crossing the 24. So let's go to Mercury now. Mercury trine Mars crossing the 24. And by the way, that is a strong reversal signature. When you have a trine with a planet or planets at the 24 line, that's very strong. So we're going to go to planetary lines, and we're going to go to Mercury now. And change the indicator to 24. And that's definitely not it. And at this point, what I'd like to introduce is what's called the mirror line. You can look at the mirror settings, and I'm going to explain again what the mirror setting is. That it's good to do that in a downtrend It's good to look at both. When stocks, when prices are trending down, it's good to look at the mirror and the non-mirror settings, because oftentimes you'll get the low will hit the mirror. And you can edit the planetary line and change it to the mirror by simply double-clicking with your left mouse key right on the mirror setting, and it'll turn into a Y for the mirror. And let's take a look at that. Now we got something here that is right on the money, and it's the kind of precision that you want to look for. Here's the 24th, Mercury crossing the 24 line. Now, to make it easier to identify, you can also go to planets, aspects, and here's one crossing the line for Mercury. It's already set at the 24 for Mercury, and it's showing it on the 27th on the Monday. But again, the reversal can happen if the event's happening on a Monday. It can sometimes happen on the Friday. The same thing applies if aspects are happening over the weekend. The reversal can happen on the Friday or the following Monday. But this is the sort of precision that we'd be looking for this planetary low, and it happens to be on the Mercury 24 setting and the mirror line, the Mercury 24 mirror line. Factor -1, meaning the lines are 24 points apart. If you click on the indicator and go back to non-mirror, you see it was not anywhere close. But with the mirror, that explains it pretty well. That's just about as precise as you would want to see it. So what is the mirror? A brief explanation, it's simply if you take the 0 Aries point as planets move forward, it's the mirror image. So if a planet is moving forward, say plus 2 degrees of longitude, the mirror would be minus 2 degrees of longitude. So if the 0 line is the 360 line, of course, if a planet is moving forward 2 degrees, the mirror would be 360 minus 2, or 358 degrees of longitude instead of 2 degrees of longitude. So it's the exact opposite point relative to the 0 Aries point. And these mirror lines are important to use when you're trying to figure these things out, and oftentimes I use mirror lines when planets are retrograde, or when price is in a downtrend or pulling back in an uptrend. And this is a great case example, because we had a pullback here in this uptrend on the 24th. There's the Mercury mirror at the 24 line. And if we go to aspect research, you notice on the 28th, Mars is crossing the 24. So we can click on the Mars line once again and change the setting to 24. Change it to mirror, change it to -1, and right click on it so it shows. And this is what it would look like, and it's not anywhere close on the mirror setting. If you clicked on the non-mirror, it's not anywhere close, but I'm just walking you through the process where you can edit the line real easily. We had Mars at the 120, now we changed it to the 24. But let's just delete that. And at this point, we don't need to go any further. When you see a precise low like this, and Mercury's crossing the 24, and the precise low is at the mirror line, in addition to all of these other planetary clusters that are occurring right here, especially when the outer planets are stationed, going retrograde or direct. We had a retrograde Saturn on the 25th, and then Neptune turning direct on the 22nd. So with those outer planets going station and all these other clusters of aspects, reversal aspects, you're looking for reversal here, and you don't want to be fooled though. Let's minimize this. Uh, is this a reversal back down or is it a reversal back up? I mean, the cluster is occurring in here. Well, if prices are trending down, then you're going to look for reversal back up. But you can always look for confirmation at the correct price level. And in this case, it was the Mercury 24 mirror line. And that's as precise as it can get. And that's what we're looking for. Now, you may find other aspects or harmonics or heliocentric aspects or harmonics that are also precise on this state. And the more the merrier. But here's one that is very strong and would give us confidence to buy, because we had a precise low here at this strong period of clusters when reversal should be occurring. So this about concludes the lesson for tonight. Now it's time for you to do the work and pull up a price chart for whatever market you're following and go through the process that I walked you through, and click on a previous top or bottom, put on your planetary lines, adjust the factors, and figure out what it was, what aspect or aspects triggered the reversal, and what the precise planetary levels were, the planetary lines that triggered the reversal.